Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Case by Case. Happy Thursday. And tonight we have a great show that we're going to bring on some great guests. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. Today has been a hectic day for me, but that's okay. I'm here, just not on camera because I've had a lot of work to do behind the scenes here. And if you guys have questions or you have scenarios that you want to put forth to Sergio, please drop them in the comment box with a question mark. I have Sergio's link up, and I also have several other links up. We also have All Eyes on Delphi with us tonight. So please be respectful. And we are going to bring everybody on screen right now. We're going to get it moving because we have a lot to discuss tonight. So let's welcome Truth Revealed is the channel name, and Sergio Dinero is his name.
Good evening, everybody.
And we have All Eyes on Delphi tonight.
Hi.
So good evening, everybody in the chat. And I hope all of you, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. I hope all of you have been able, hi guys. I hope all of you have been able to watch Truth Revealed's video on Ron Logan. And I'm going to have him kind of give us an idea of, we know what his analysis said, but I'm going to kind of have him recap that a little bit. And then I know that All Eyes has some questions. And then we're going to get into I've started a murder board, which is all of the suspects in Delphi. And I'm going to keep adding to it, tweaking it, adjusting it based on this commentary and Sergio's analysis and opinions. So as we continue to go forward, we'll review this murder board and make adjustments. So, Sergio, let's talk about Ron Logan.
All right. So you want me to just kick off with a recap of my video, sort of?
Sure, absolutely.
All right. So the statement that I looked at from Ron Logan was that very grainy recording that was done covertly. And I will say that the questions that were asked were phenomenal. I mentioned that a couple of times in my video, and I wish that half of the interrogators were as good as I don't know what that lady's name is or who she was, but it was really impressive the way that she followed up and asked direct questions. That is how I was able to get the information that I did, because when statements are as short as this one, it's often hard to get good information if the questions aren't good, because I need the question to actually activate the memories around the incident in question. And if they don't do that, then I don't end up with good information. But we did get some good information here. So just to recap, I mean, I'm sure if you're watching us here, you probably saw the video. So there was a couple of places where he had some missing information in there. And that missing time, what I call missing time or missing information, is very key in cases like this, because when you know definitively that somebody has information that they feel is incriminating and they remove it from what they're saying, that's very important information. So there was some missing information around his alibi statement. And again, I want to reiterate to everybody, I know that when I'm doing this analysis, it can seem like I know a lot about the case or about the person, but I really don't have a good grasp on the evidence, on who's been looked at. Everything I know from this case is based on talking to Amy here over a very short period of time after I did the Keegan Klein video. So I pointed some stuff out about his alibi, that he cut out some information there. And then there was one area of my video that I think is pretty humorous. if you've been following the case for a while, you probably thought I had lost my mind. But when I was looking at the part where he's talking about Pat Brown finding the bodies, there's no reference to the bodies. Initially, they're talking about clothing. And so for the next 5 questions, I thought we were just talking about clothing that had been found. And when I went back afterwards, I realized that they were actually talking about finding the girls' bodies down there, which made everything much worse because it was the bodies and not just the clothing. Um, so you probably saw that in the video, and I'd be happy to answer questions about that. But that's basically, I was referring to his statement, not to prior knowledge. So that's why I thought it was the clothing. And then
Is that's where he inserted the people across the people on the other side of the creek were looking over on his side and saw clothes and they saw me.
yeah, that's really weird. I mean, it makes sense because of the way your brain works, but most people are not going to make that mistake. They will edit out the word me before they say that. So
Okay, Sergio, just really quick.
yeah.
We have, okay, hang on. So who dis in chat, are you the one who made this video of him without his knowledge? We have somebody in the chat who is claiming that they walked with him to the crime scene.
No.
I'm gonna wait for them. Okay, so I did. Who dis says I didn't take the video. I posted it because someone else posted it and took it down. Okay.
Is he referring to the 2 women who were driving by and they saw him? And is that the video who this is talking about?
I don't know. I pulled several videos, lengthy videos that I could find of Ron because we don't have any interrogation videos from law enforcement. So I gave Sergio what I could find that gave him, a baseline of Ron Logan's personality, him being questioned, and ultimately his analysis came from the video that was taken by the 2 girls that showed up at his house and were recording without Ron's knowledge.
I think his baseline depends on who you ask. I mean,
yeah.
If you ask Kathy Shank, he's a grandfatherly person. If you ask other people, he definitely has numerous sides, and they're all extremely strong. They're all each strong personalities. Each individual one of his personalities, I guess. He's a tricky one.
Well, and that's what I tried to do with all of these videos that I've sent him. I've tried not to give him too much information. I've just sent him videos and said, hey, here's a little bit of history, but for the most part, he doesn't really know. Am I still right, Sergio, that you don't really know like all the ins and outs of the case?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what we talked about is the only information that I have on this, and I haven't done any outside research other than the morning when I woke up and I was just looking for police statements about the case. And so that was when I stumbled across Keegan Klein really quickly. So it helps me to not have a lot of information on the case because that way I can focus on just the verbiage that's in the statement because I don't want any outside bias.
Right. So what is between him? Okay. Can you give us your opinion on involved, like who do you feel had more involvement in the case, Keegan Klein or Ron Logan? Where did you feel the most involvement? I know it's
Yeah,
been a minute since you did Keegan's.
So from the statements, the statement from Keegan Klein, that came across to me as being very actively involved in this. He never denied or now the way that I remember the statement is based on the reality. It's based on, so if he says stuff that's deceptive in his statement, then to me that's not reality. That's deception. So in his statement, he had the chance to deny involvement numerous times and he never denied it. So there's only one way to deny something, which is to say, I didn't do it. And he never does that. What he does do a lot, 6 times in his statement, is he says, I killed them. So when somebody adds in the words, I killed them or I murdered them or anything like that, it doesn't matter what verbiage they put before or after that. So when somebody says, I didn't kill them, well, no, sorry, I didn't kill them is the only honest way to say it. But if somebody says, I can't believe you're accusing me of killing them, that is not a denial. That is a confession. So he actually confesses 6 times in his statement. And the involvement that he has with the Anthony Shots account, that shows me, along with the fact that he fled immediately after the murders and went to Las Vegas, and he doesn't deny any of that. That shows me that he had a very active role in this. And from the way that the picture that I'm getting from this is that he was looking at this as a business venture here, or a business meeting, I guess, where he wanted the video. He wanted pictures, he wanted video, he wanted to take that stuff and make money from it. And Ron Logan's involvement here, when I was looking at his statement, for a long time through his statement, there was no indication from him that he had any involvement before the girls were murdered until the very end, when he starts reliving a scene where they're still alive. But overall, what that tells me is that his memory of this is more situational. It has more to do with the environment than the girls themselves. And so I think his role in this was to control the environment. I think he knew what was going on from the beginning. He was there, and his job was to control the environment. But there's still a missing piece to this, because there's no possible way that the two of them could have controlled, not just physically controlled, but mentally controlled 2 14-year-old girls. So there's still a big piece missing for me.
Really? You think so? Did Keegan come? I mean, I don't know. I think well, I'm going to speak for me. Maybe all eyes, you can come in here too. For me, I think the impression that I've gotten from Keegan is, I know he's downplayed everything that he's ever done in his life. He is a dirtball, and he has a serious problem with the things that he obsesses over. There's a huge difference between being a pervert and being willing to go out and physically get involved and taking the lives of someone else. Do you feel, and maybe this isn't your forte, but do you feel that Keegan's personality or his demeanor is shielding a darker side of him? Or do you feel that, like when you say he was someone who was trying to control the environment, was he just the organizer and wasn't physically the one out there doing the dirty work?
Well, I think Ron Logan was the one who was trying to control the environment. I think that
Mhm.
was his role, was to give them a place to do what they wanted to do. And Keegan Klein's personality, and the motive that he had for doing what he was doing, I think that was driven primarily financially, but that doesn't have any bearing on what level of violence he would be willing to commit himself. So the fact that he was there because he wanted videos and pictures to be able to sell, I mean, wouldn't surprise me at all if he was there with the intent of creating a snuff film that ended in murders that he could sell.
Now, do you think based on your interpretation of Ron Logan's um, speech, his baseline, and then Keegan's, do you think this was initially planned to be more of a photo shoot opportunity where maybe the girls thought, I mean, we all know the girls had been sending pictures. I don't know if there was any money that exchanged hands. I don't think any of us know that for sure. But do you feel like this was something that would have been set up because they were into taking pictures and they were going out there to have a photo shoot? Or do you feel like maybe that's what the girls thought it was, but it wasn't that at all? It was much worse. Like, I feel like we are all just really trying to figure out why.
Yeah,
Why?
yeah. I mean, the way that it looks to me, and again, this is only my opinion based on not even direct verbiage, but based on the feel that I get from the statements. So, really, just my opinion. I think that the intent there was to, I don't think that the intent was to kill them on the video. I think that they wanted to try to create probably a more long lasting relationship of getting videos and pictures, because they didn't seem to have a plan for where to put the bodies afterwards. I think that had this been a completely premeditated murder from the beginning, I think they probably would have had a plan in place that they would have. I don't think the bodies would have ended up on Ron Logan's property. I think they probably would have disposed of them in a way that would have taken a lot longer for police to find them. So
Okay.
it leads me to think that either the girls had a reaction that they weren't expecting, which could be because this is just from the statements, what the way that I see this going down is they wanted to create videos of one of them, one of the the killers, or one of the posse there. They wanted to create sex tapes, and when the girls didn't go, either got nervous or they didn't know that when they got there, or I think they put up resistance to that, and that resistance turned into something like, we're going to report you, or something like that, that flipped a switch where it became like the guys that were there thought, well, now this has to happen because this is a survival thing.
So are you okay? All eyes, go ahead.
Oops, sorry, I hit the mute. Um, when it comes to statements, I go I go so back and forth when it comes to Keegan and or Ron Logan. But is there any, like, the only thing I can even figure when it comes to the pictures and this side of things is, do you think to it's part of grooming, but to desensitize them, where they were just going to try to, oh, we're just playing around. This is not serious, and trying to erode some of the boundaries that they would have had to try to get them to go to a next step maybe. And then it just went too far, or one of the girls said no after they had maybe been a little too bold or something. I can't make sense of what the environment could have allowed for, even if you're out at a public trail and this is where all this is happening. I cannot make sense of how we go from just crossing a bridge to maybe meeting people to even talking about these types of, like, that is a big shift in tone from being outdoorsy and hiking to I don't think the girls would have been in on it. I doubt they would have known, but how do you even do that maybe without rushing it? Is there any indication of rushing, I guess? Or maybe,
hey, all eyes.
Yeah.
Everybody in chat is saying that your mic is sounding like it's cutting in and out.
uh-oh,
That's
okay.
usually my problem.
Oh Lord, let me unplug and then I'll mute while I unplug and redo it. Y'all keep going while I try again.
Okay. So Sergio, I think, okay, so Michael Osbrook, he is a law professor, and he's written motions for the defense team in this case. He has a question, and he's wanting to know, even though the interrogations are your expertise,
Mhm.
does the manner in which the girls were killed mean anything to you? So that's the question. And I'm going to add a second part to that. Are you aware of the Odinism aspect of this case? The accusations or the things that were discussed in the case about this being a religious ceremony?
Okay, so the only thing that I know about that is what we talked about off camera. You and I talked, just I guess to catch the listeners up. We talked for a couple hours after the first time that I basically photobombed your podcast when I was on it. So that was what, 2 weeks ago, something like that. And then we talked for a little bit after that, and you mentioned about that. I haven't done any research on Odinism since then, but so the only thing that I know of and have seen is what you showed me. And so based on what I saw there, now I have no firsthand experience with ritualistic killings, so I really am not an expert on this field, or on this area, but it looked to me like it just didn't seem like it was an actual ritual. It's an actual ritual killing. It looked like a scene that was staged to look like that.
Okay.
So that was my first impression when I saw that. And the way that I have always done this that I function in interrogations, my interrogation method is called the empathy method. And the reason for that is because I'm really good at putting myself in other people's shoes and other people's situations. So if I found myself in that situation that we've been talking about, and I had to get rid of two bodies, that is exactly what I would have done. Had I known that the Odinism thing was prevalent in this community, just trying to rush together a scene that would draw the attention away from myself and put it onto other people, that seems like the most common sense way to do that. And the other thing, the big problem that I have, the reason why it doesn't look ritualistic to me, is because there wasn't enough blood there.
So, and for me, can everybody in chat hear me okay now? I reset my mic.
I did mine too. Is mine good while we're mic checking? Is mine good?
Yeah, you sound great. I hear you loud and clear.
Sorry about that.
Hey, Fig. So, so here's the thing, guys, everybody in chat, and this is how I've been trying to approach this with Sergio, is I'm letting him listen to these interrogations, what we do have, without giving him all of the variables that we've been dealing with for almost 9 years now, and letting him read people for how he sees them without giving him all of the background and the context of pretty much the Frank's motion. I've not gotten into that. I did bring up Odinism and symbols, but I will do this. I'm going to skip forward here. So when we talk about the Odinism, pretty much everybody in the case that was involved or accused of possibly being involved were interviewed and investigated within the first 70 days of this case. And all of those interviews are gone.
Well, some of the video is recovered, but the audio is gone, which is,
the same thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's the important part. But they did recover some of the video in those 70 days, but their narrative reports are useless.
So when we go, I think the reason this case is so polarizing is because we have 3 to 4 different facets of either individuals or groups that are like logically real suspects.
Mm-hmm.
And logically, you can put them in this case, but we've not been able to connect them all to Ron Logan. And I do feel like Ron Logan was the key, even though he's supposedly dead and gone now. We don't have a grave. We don't have an obituary. This case is insane, but there are rumors, there's things in the underbelly of this case that say, there were ceremonies going on at the cemetery that was right next door to Ron Logan's property. And what I'm trying not to do is gear your mindset towards any one POI, basically. I want you to read these individuals for who they are and how you clearly see them without trying to give you a push in one direction.
I have a follow-up question for him, though, on the ritualistic thing. When you say when I hear ritualistic, I think more the textbook definition where it is acts that are not necessary to bring death, that are done after the fact. Just like staging even is, I guess, technically ritualistic. When you're doing something that serves no purpose to actually taking someone's life, and it's just a different, because most people, if they snapped and it was just a crime of passion, a lot of times they'll bolt and they'll get out of there as fast as they can. Sometimes they'll try to throw some stuff around to make it look like a robbery, but this person, it doesn't see like it. It's so strange. Like, I don't know that it was ceremonial. I guess that's the distinction I would like to know when you're saying you don't think it's ritualistic. I mean, in some cases, I think it is. In some cases, I don't know that it is quite ceremonial in that sort of sense. But this person didn't leave in a hurry. They stayed in this crime scene, and they didn't just stage it, they styled it. Like, that is something I can't get past it. And they didn't leave until they were done doing that. And the other thing that I always get stuck on with that is everybody who went out to this, where they were found to take video, every single person, you can tell they are hyper aware that they are on somebody else's property. Kind of like when you're in an office building, and of course you're not really going to get in big trouble, but you're still, you're not where you're supposed to be. So you're hyper aware of it. And all of these people just could not get out of there fast enough. This person was out there with two girls who's were no longer
And-
with us. One of them was naked. How do you have that kind of audacity on somebody else's property? But I don't know if
In
that
broad
plays in.
daylight. In
Yes.
broad daylight.
And people were on the bridge at this time.
Yes.
So I guess that's kind of one of the distinctions I would like, because I really don't know where I fall on it, because this is the strangest crime I've ever heard of. Everything about it is strange. Everything about even the victimology is strange. It makes no sense to me, but I don't know that I would call it ceremonial so much as I would. It is partially ritualistic, but when you are looking at the Frank suspects types, violence against women and girls is rampant, and they're almost fundamentalist in their beliefs, and it is just common to have violence against them. They view women and children. A lot of people are like, why would they hurt two white children? They love white people. And
Are you talking about the
not,
white? Are you talking about the
yeah,
white
with the
supremacists?
with the Frank suspects, just because
Mhm.
it's, but they, not in the way people mean, like it's not a healthy sort of love. It's more of like a subjugation type thing. At least when we're talking these people are extremists. They're not the people who are really just pagan. There's distinctions that need to be made there, obviously. But, when we're talking about this specific cast of characters, they are on the extremist side. So it's hard for me because almost everybody that is brought in, I can't rule them out, but there's just all these distinctions that I need more distinctions, I guess. But with the ritualistic thing, that is one where he mentioned it. And I would like to know, like, can you tell from statements if it was more symbolic versus ceremonial to someone versus whether it was just an act of
Flat out.
violence?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So can I field this, Amy?
Sorry, I know that's a lot. I just don't even know.
It
No,
is so
that was
much.
great.
I can't even usually get it in chat, but like any or all of that you have something on, I'll take it. You don't have to cover all of it, but that's where I'm at and where I get stuck, and I get on loop with those things.
Yeah. So the first thing that I want to say is, because of my background, which is military, I did my interrogations and analysis and all of that stuff overseas. All of my training was local, but all of the actual work that I did was not within the United States. And so the practice of the way that I implemented my techniques, I wasn't running through the American judicial system. So for me, and it's a very military mindset, I know, but everything is about the outcome. So it's not, when we're talking about what's admissible in court and this and that, I've never considered that before because it wasn't part of my job. And so when I look at things now, I'm looking at the realistic aspect of how things played out. So as I look at this, and this is now getting back to what you were talking about, whether the killings were ritualistic or ceremonial. And I think that the most logical and realistic scenario here would be that this was coordinated beforehand. And because of the way when you film, like if you guys notice me and my background here, this took a long time to put together. Like you can't just accidentally make a background that films well. And so if they were doing this if Keegan Klein is the one who set this up and it was for the purpose of taking pictures or film, it would, and this a little bit, Amy helped fill in the gaps when we were talking, but I think it would have to have been the killings and where they were going. It would have to have been to Ron Logan's, either his house or his barn or something like that. You would need, I mean, 2 14-year-old girls, even if you've been grooming them, they're not going to be, well, I don't know. I can't say this definitively, but it seems like they would want some element of privacy that would be more than just being out in a forest area. Right. So the setup, the most likely setup, knowing Keegan Klein's background, I think would be that they would lead them back to an area that's more controlled. And that would be why there was not any blood. I mean, I know there was some blood, but there was not the blood that you would have from, you know, the way that they were killed wasn't at the crime scene. And now the other thing that you were talking about, All Eyes, is you're 100% right in that somebody who doesn't own that land is not going to sit there on someone else's property and stage that. So if they brought the bodies back, which Ron Logan says in his statement, he has a missing time statement right there where he says they didn't find them the night before. I know that I'm looking at this and I'm seeing something different than you guys, because you're not used to keying in so heavily on the word before. But the word before is missing time. It means that the person who said that has a memory that they are removing from their statement. So when you say the word before, it means something happened after that, because it's easier to say that statement without putting in the word before. It should have been why they didn't find them that night. Any normal person that was talking about that would have said why they didn't find them that night. But instead, he has a memory he has to remove. And so he puts in, and this is a big problem if you're being deceptive, is that when you cut out memories, your verbiage, the part of your brain that structures sentences, it gives you away, because when you remove that memory, now he says before because something happened after that. But he's not telling you exactly what happened after that. He removed that. And so when you notice that, I go through and I mark all of the missing time statements. And here there was two big ones. One was the alibi and one was the murder. So you notice you don't see the words after or before anywhere else in this statement.
Do you think him with the alibi issue, do you think, like you personally, that we can chalk that up to, well, he was being deceptive because he created an alibi and it was because he was worried about his probation or his license? Do you kind of dismiss it a little bit more because of that? Or do you think that is not enough to dismiss him, I guess, is my question.
I mean, the fact that he was creating an alibi,
right,
with guilt.
Yeah,
I wouldn't dismiss him. I mean, that makes him far
even more
suspect. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so yeah. And then what I was saying here, when it comes to the murders, he says, I don't know why they didn't find them the night before. He tells you there that he cut out a memory. And if he knows that the search party was walking through that area the night before, and he went and put the bodies there after, he knows that once the search party moves past that location, they're not going to go back to that location that night. So, oh, okay. I look like I froze for a second there. So he knows that they're not going to go back there that night, and it's his property. So because it's his property and they've already searched it, he knows that he has time. And what you were saying earlier, All Eyes, was that how would somebody spend enough time out there staging the bodies? Wouldn't they be nervous? He wouldn't be nervous if it was his own land. And it comes across in his statement that he removed a memory of the bodies there from the night before. And so I think that once the search party had moved past it, it was his land. He's familiar with it. He knows that they're not going to be searching that area again that night. He went out there and he took the time to stage them in what he thought would mislead law enforcement in a way that he could pin it on somebody else or try to put it on somebody else. And that's, and you also got to keep in mind that he knows that his life depends on this. If you're thinking, well, even if it was my land, I wouldn't be comfortable sitting out there with dead bodies to stage this whole thing. But you got to think about it slightly differently, that his life will be over if he doesn't take this time to mislead law enforcement right now. Basically, he has to put in an hour right now where he's kind of out in the open there. And if he doesn't do that, his life is over. So he's going to risk it in order
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's good.
I was just going to say, kind of on that point, is the only thing that ever, I guess, always pops up in my mind is the fact that it was somewhat in line of sight from the Weber property. Like, I feel like it only makes sense for someone who is comfortable on that land to be there. But could he really have been just so in the zone trying to stage it to save his own life, really? Like, I guess, fight or flight kind of mode, to where it wouldn't occur to him? Or do you think maybe that was part of it? Like, he thought, well, at least the neighbor will see them in the daylight, because maybe at night they can't see right down there. But during the daytime, if you are looking right there, you can see that area, maybe not quite 50 feet off of the bank, but you can see right where they would have crossed from the Weber. I don't know if it's their kitchen window or their living room area, but there's even the picture from the Weber house when I think it was Greeno who was out there. They got a picture of him because he was trying to go on the property. You can see pretty clearly and pretty far. So I don't know. That's the only thing that ever gives me pause, I guess, about it. Other than maybe they say he was drunk a lot. Like, maybe he thought he had gotten them just off of his property and was too drunk to realize they weren't quite over the line, maybe. I don't know. But does that play in if you're in that, or maybe that's even missing time? Or do you think he moved him once or twice, I guess, is my question too.
That I can't tell from his statement. I can only tell that he was involved there at least once, because whatever happened. He says I don't understand why they didn't find them the night before. So he's saying he cut out that entire chunk, that entire night. So, it's possible he could have moved the body 4 or 5 times. I mean, think about it. You got to try and put yourself into a situation. And if you got to think of something else other than dead bodies, because we don't have experience there, but we've all done stuff that we didn't want somebody else to know about. So let's say, for example, you're throwing a surprise party and you've got a bunch of decorations, and you need the person whose party you're throwing, you need them to not be there when you're putting up the decorations. So you might put the decorations in one place where you don't think they're going to find them. And then if they come home or whatever, you might move them to a different location. And then eventually, what I'm talking about is a deceptive mindset. You have a mindset where you're trying to do something without anybody else seeing it. So it's hard to say. I mean, from the verbiage, I can't say how many times they were moved or anything like that. But it definitely seems to me like that was the time when they were staged. And it wouldn't have been during the daylight. It would have been at night, because he specifically says why they didn't find them the night before. So he would have been staging them in the dark. And there's also a bit of shock to him in his statement that he can be seen from there, because he says supposedly some people on the other side could look on my side of the creek and they say they saw clothing. So they called up. They said there's some clothing down there. Go check it out. So he went down over the hill and saw me. So the words supposedly and me, they're tied together by supposedly you can see him from there in his mind.
I don't know how they didn't find the clothes sooner either the night before.
Because they weren't there.
Right. Can I jump in?
Yeah.
I try not to, because I want my channel to be kind of like the medium ground, in the middle road. I have several different ideologies of what I think happened, but I can't say definitively for sure. But there are some things that add up, and there's a lot of things that don't. And I personally don't think that I do believe the girls were taken off the south end of the bridge, because nobody's seen them going back on the north end of the bridge. And there are too many witnesses. There are too many people out there at that time who could have seen them. So I have to believe that they were taken off the south end of the bridge. Once they went down that hill, I don't know
I had
if
more questions than answers about that once they went down.
once they went down, I don't
What
know if they got in a car that, but if here's the thing, people, if they got in a car, they didn't go out away from the bridge down the private drive. They would have had to gone to Brad Weber's property and out the other exit area on his property. And the thing is with Sergio, I don't want to fill his head with all of our ideas. I want him to look at these suspects
Yeah.
and read them for who they are and what he can see in them. And there's several questions in the chat that make perfect sense. Like, Sergio, have you watched the actual bridge guy video?
Yeah.
Have you?
It's very short, right?
It is. It's 43 seconds long.
Yeah.
Have you been able, what is your, I have it loaded. I can play it really quick for 43 seconds and maybe you can just based on.
Yeah, play it for sure. So we can hear anything.
Yeah. Like the girls, and are they, just give us your opinion.
Sure.
See, this is the path that we go down. There's no path going there, so we have to go down here.
Well, I think my internet tonight sucks. It just cut off the very end of it.
I think that is the end of it.
Well, did you guys hear the bridge guy?
I did.
Oh, did you, Sergio? Did you?
I couldn't hear it on this video, but I've heard it before. I believe he says, "Guys, go down the hill," right?
He just says, "Guys," and she says, "Hi."
Hi.
And then he says, "Down the hill."
Down the hill, yeah.
Yeah.
But she says hi in between there.
Do you have an opinion on that? Do you have like just the tone of the voice or the apprehension of the voice? What do you hear?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I noticed when I looked at it, which is number one, she's ready to record as soon as that guy is there. And that tells me that number one, she knew that she was meeting somebody there and she was nervous about it. So there's sort of a, like, she's not holding the camera out in the open, you know, how like creating a video that everybody's aware of. She's sort of concealing the fact that she's recording. And that tells me that she's that she's nervous. She's scared. She doesn't know how this is going to go, so to speak. And so she's recording just in case. And she was ready from the very beginning. How often have you been in a situation where you're like, oh my gosh, my kid's doing something cute, I need to record. And it takes you too long to get your phone out and open the app to actually get it on camera. So she was prepared right when she saw him there. And the other thing that I noticed is she does not sound afraid in her tone. So what that tells me is that meeting was not unexpected. So you
do not hear fear.
No.
Okay.
I don't either.
Okay, so let me throw this into the mix and get your opinion. So we know that this video starts and it appears that first of all, we don't know. Initially, we didn't know if Libby was recording on purpose, or if she didn't realize her phone was recording based on what her camera was actually capturing.
Right, because on that note, the last time we learned at trial, the last time she unlocked her phone was at 2:07, and it was not locked up until the video at 2:13. So she either had been on her phone or had just had it down while they were walking and didn't realize it. But at some point, while it was already unlocked, she does take that. And this video, this time out there, was Abby's first time crossing the bridge. She had never crossed it before. And so there's, I think a lot of us go back and forth. Was she trying to record the first time crossing the bridge, or was it to capture the bridge guy? Was it, we don't really know, but we do know there was something going on with the phone before this. It was not like she opened her phone to start filming. The phone was already open, but she didn't start filming until she was at the edge. I don't know if that if that ultimately makes any difference, but
Well, the issue, this is where everything gets complicated with this case, is when you dig in deep. So the video starts at 2:13 and some change. And it appears that Libby captures Abby and a little bit of the bridge guy, but after that, it's all like downward focused.
Yeah. She just puts it down.
But at 2:07, the phone is unlocked and it's kept. The phone does not have auto lock enabled on the phone. So if she took the photo of Abby on the bridge at 2:07 and didn't do anything else with her phone, the phone, I think, would just stay unlocked until it just, I don't know if she had like some sort of a 2-minute, turn off mode.
I think she just didn't have the auto lock set. It was just until I think you would have to press the side button was the setting that she had at the time.
Right.
Where it wouldn't just auto shut off after 30 seconds or a minute. It was not at all until it was closed.
So Kat in chat, Kat is asking, do we trust Bunner or Cecil, which were two state witnesses testifying about the phone? I can't really address that, but what I can address is that you can't argue with the data that was downloaded from the phone. So it is what it is, and it's an Apple iPhone, and they have their own code and recipe for all of the things that go on their phone. But my issue is that when the video turns off, that 43-second video turns off, within 2 seconds, somebody, Libby or somebody else, attempted to unlock the phone with their thumbprint, and it didn't work.
Yeah, it was an unsuccessful attempt, but I also wonder if she got a phone call and that's what interrupted it. Maybe that's why it cut off abruptly, because someone called.
It could have, but the phone data would have shown that.
Well,
we have not heard anything that there was a phone call that came in anywhere within that 2:13 and that 2:14 minute. So if her phone was unlocked at 2:07 to take that picture of Abby on the bridge, and it wasn't locked after that, then she started the video. When he said, guys, down the hill, she would have had to manually, with her thumb, locked that phone on the side to stop that video. And then ultimately turned around and attempted to unlock the phone. And Michael Osbrook is saying in chat right now, there's no call on the cell phone at 2:14.
Right, but if it came in while she's filming and she turned it, like she clicked the button to silence it, it would, before it comes.
It would have still been. It would have still showed up as an event on the phone.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Cecil looked at all those events. That is my working theory, because he didn't. We know he didn't, and we didn't find out that he didn't until he was on the stand, and that appears to be the first time he found out that he didn't look at all of it. But aside from that, like that is the only thing that could explain to me why she would also be unlocking the phone at that same time. If there was some sort of event, like, or maybe my other thing has always been like, was this dude on a walkie-talkie and or on his phone, and she's catching him talking to someone else? What if it was someone who is known to her? And if you've been connected to someone's Wi-Fi, sometimes it'll automatically connect, or if you get close enough to another phone, sometimes it will attempt to connect to to a network of devices until we have it. Anyway, the only reason I care about any of that is because I'm trying to understand what, like, while they're talking, who is he actually speaking to? Because she says we're going down the hill as if that's the plan all along, and she says it before he
Yes.
even walks up. He
Yes.
says it
So-
after he's walked up. I don't even know if he heard her say that we're going down the hill.
So you
it's
guys
just
want to play a little game?
yeah.
Yes, please, because I want, because you are fresh eyes on this with extensive knowledge of, people's behaviors.
Mhm.
And when I, sometimes, like, you don't know all the ins and outs of this case, and it's been swirling for, almost 9 years. And it sounds ridiculous if you haven't been here this whole time, whether
Yeah.
you've been on YouTube or not. Like, so let's play a game. Let's play Sergio's game. Let's play your game.
Okay, so the principle of this game is, Robert Oppenheimer created Occam's razor, which is
Mhm.
essentially it
Yeah.
boils down to the easiest answer is usually the right answer, but actually what it is the answer that requires the least amount of hypothetical leaps
Right.
is usually the right answer.
Okay.
So we want to try and figure out something that will piece all of the different areas, because you guys are talking about essentially maybe 4, maybe 5 separate incidences when it comes to this bridge.
Yeah.
So we want to figure out how all of those time frames fit together with the least number of hypothetical jumps, like having to make a huge logical leap. And so the way that I do this is I try and think about each one of these things individually, and then we try and tie them together. So the first thing that I notice is the video starts with her looking at Abby, and then it moves off to the side. So I'm trying to get my hand in frame here. So it starts with her looking this way, and then she does this. Actually, let me go the other way. She does this with her phone. And the most logical thing to me is that if she was recording Abby because it was Abby's first time coming across the bridge, they probably would have stopped halfway across the bridge and she would have posed, and they would have done selfie type of videos as opposed to waiting all the way until the end. The other thing to me is that when I'm with my family taking video of my kids, the last thing that I want in that video is someone else, some old guy walking behind my family.
Right.
I'll do whatever I can to keep people out of my video. So the fact that she doesn't hold the video straight, that tells me that either, number one, it's either she's taking the video on accident, or number two, she's not actually trying to video Abby. So she starts the video here and then she moves it. And that motion seems very intentional to me. If somebody started recording accidentally, I would, again, I'm just trying to put myself, I'm not giving any facts here, I'm just giving my opinion, but if I started recording accidentally with my phone up in the record mode, which, I mean, who holds their phone like this and then accidentally starts recording? To me, it seems more logical that she intentionally started recording. And if she didn't know she was recording, I would think that the phone would drop straight down. But it, in fact, goes like this. It looks to me like she's very intentionally recording the guy who's coming up behind her.
Yes, and then you add in the fact that she didn't have auto lock on. So when the video stopped, she would have had, if she was videotaping without knowing, I don't feel like the video would have stopped where it did. I feel like when they got that guys down the hill and you see Abby direct, like there was no question. I don't know if there was a weapon branded or what, but there was no question of the person who was telling them down the hill. Abby turned and went, and then the phone turned off, which tells me Libby knew it was recording. She knew it was on, and she hit the button.
Yeah. She
Yeah.
did, though. They did stop halfway at the bridge and take a picture, though, to, you know, she took one at the very beginning of the bridge before they started crossing. That was the first picture. After, you know, they took pictures in the car on the way, and then she takes a picture at the beginning of the bridge. They stop halfway through at the third platform, right in the middle, and that's the picture of Abby crossing the bridge. And then the last thing that happens is that video of Abby. And we talked about this on Hella's Live too, along the lines of what he was saying. I think that she wanted to get a picture of Abby, but this dude just came right up on him. Maybe they didn't notice him before because he was booking it and they just weren't paying attention. But like, she almost looks to me, at least when I'm thinking of my girls around that age, they're like, crap, is he still behind? Like, is he still in the shot? Like, almost like, well, oh well, you know, we're gonna go down here now, kind of thing. Like, there's, in some ways, I can hear that, I can see that happening, but I can't make sense of how she says we're going down here, and then he comes up separately from them and also says it.
Yeah. So let's keep playing because we've
Yeah.
only covered a couple of things so far. So the next part that we want to look at is the interaction. So the phone comes down, but she doesn't stop recording. And to me, that again feels very intentional there.
Yeah.
If she was accidentally recording and she realized that she was recording, why didn't she just turn it off right there? So she see how long she holds that on the side there. She's
weird.
definitely trying to get him in the frame. And then she keeps recording when she puts it down to her side, which again tells me that seems intentional. There's numerous things that seem very intentional about this. So
And
in my
okay, but
mind-
wait a minute. So what, how do you feel about, like, right here, Abby crosses, and I feel like she says,
Going there, so we have to go down here.
there's
Like, we're
no
going down
path
here
going
now.
there, so we have to go down here. And there's this long, drawn out delay. Like, if they were fearful, why aren't they taking off?
Like, they're almost waiting for him.
Right, like right here. Yeah, like we know that they could go straight across to Kay Weber's. They could have run down the hill around. I mean, Libby knows that area. Abby knows that area. It's a very awkward feeling to me
There's no path.
because I hear
going
in
there,
Libby's
so we have to
voice
go down here.
something.
Yeah, and in my opinion, that's exactly where I was going with this. Is there's nothing in their voice, the way that their tone comes across right here. There's nothing unexpected. So all of this, they're not surprised by anything. If there would have been a weapon brandished at this point, you would have seen a very different reaction. Most likely, that video would completely stop. It would stay on recording, but they would have probably frozen. And then there would have been some sort of exchange. So looking at that video, I'm willing to bet anything that there was no weapon that was presented there. What they did was not forced. They very much went right along with what they were told to do.
Are their
Now,
statements matching the behavior they're showing to you?
the statements?
Like, the things they're saying, does it look like they're saying one thing but actually acting a different way from the movement? Like, do they seem in sync, considering someone's like just ruined their shot and or is walking up? Like,
Right, exactly. It seems to me like nothing is out of sync here. It
Yeah.
seems to me like if there was something out of sync, you would have heard it in their voice or you would have seen it as a pause in their motion. But everything seems to be quote unquote normal here. It seems to be what they were expecting. Because she says down the hill, and then later he says, guys, down the hill. So it seems like they were expecting that, and then he, just said down the hill. Because think about it this way. If you and I had never met before and you were walking across the bridge and I walk up to you and I say, like, if it's you two, and I said, guys, down the hill, would you just be like, oh, and go down the hill? No, you'd be like, who are you?
I'd be like, he must be talking to somebody else. Like, I just would.
Exactly.
You would have heard me say what?
Yeah,
Me?
exactly. You would have
Something.
they would have said, are you talking to us? Like,
Yeah.
there would be an element of surprise. And there's something in so my job is federal law enforcement. I was an air marshal, so I was tactical 100%. I didn't do investigations or anything. And as an air marshal, we were taught there's something called an OODA loop, which is OODA, and OODA stands for observe, orient, decide, and act. And everybody goes through that process whenever something new happens to them. And so when you see something, you observe something, and then you have to orient yourself. What's going on here? And then you have to make a decision of what you're going to do, and then you act. What happens is when something out of the ordinary happens, you'll observe, and then that orient phase causes you to get stuck in a loop because you try and orient yourself. What's going on here? And then before you can make a decision, you go back to observation again.
Yeah.
So it creates this loop: observe, orient, observe, orient, observe, orient, before you finally make a decision. And that is something that you are not going to see two completely untrained 14-year-old girls who are able to have a situation come up on them that could be scary, and they're just going to just decide, yeah, that's normal, I'm just going to go down this hill. You would have seen some questioning back where they're going to try and reobserve and then reorient, reobserve and reorient, which would be a back and forth communication that would be like something like, are you talking to us? Why do you want us to go down the hill? There would have been an exchange like that where they're trying to orient themselves to the command. Yeah. But because that didn't happen, they had to have been groomed for that. I mean, there had to have been a conversation beforehand that they were expecting that, because they did. There's no way they would have done that if they weren't expecting it. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is Ron Logan mentions this in his statement, that what they did, he says it had to have been her father because they wouldn't have just went along so easily if they didn't know them.
So Sergio, yeah. Really quick, Sergio and All Eyes, I'm going to introduce Michael Osbrook to the panel. So Michael, Sergio, All Eyes, Michael.
Hi, Sergio. It's such an honor to meet you.
Thank you. You too.
Virtually.
Yeah.
No, I mean, what you did on KK's and Ron Logan's language, really interesting. Don't always agree with all of it. I think some of it's I agree with almost all of it. Some of it's a little ambiguous. But one thing, since we're talking about the BG video, from the language, is it your sense with the exchange of guys high down the hill that is their first encounter?
Yeah, great question. That to me definitely. Now, again, like, this is virtual and we meet here, and if we made plans to meet in person, then the first time I see you in person, it's not going to feel like it's the first time I've met you. So I think it's very possible that they had electronic communication beforehand. Even if they hadn't met in person, you're still going to have that sense of familiarity the first time that you see somebody.
Well, I'm asking for a slightly different reason, and that is that I have actually thought so there's this 207 Snapchat picture. It's a little suspicious, but let's say it's real, of Abby on the bridge alone, and there is nobody behind her. And what I'm wondering is, just from the language, given your expertise and knowing about how people behave, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to the possibility that this guy walked past them on the bridge from the south side and then turned around? In other words, they would have encountered each other physically. To me, it
Like
sounds
he
like a
was on the
person.
south end first, you mean? Like before they even started crossing?
Yeah,
Is
like
that what you're saying?
where you see the video end where he says, "Guys down the hill," and see, I don't want to catch Sergio off guard, but I don't think that he understands or he knows that. So at 2:07, there was a photograph posted on or supposedly posted on Snapchat of Abby on the bridge, which would have been taken by Libby, who would have been in front of her, turning around, taking the picture. And there is no one behind her at 2:07. At 2:13, the video starts, and you see Bridge Guy where you see him.
Like
Mm-hmm.
he just appears out of nowhere, literally.
Right. So the theory is where you see the video end where he says, "Guys down the hill," did a guy come up the hill and enter the bridge from that end, walk past the girls or attempt to interact with the girls, and then turn around behind them and begin to follow?
Or like he just passed them without trying to, and then after they
Look,
went towards the
Sergio's
south
like,
end,
"Look, I don't know.
like I guess
don't
the
know what all
simplest way to
these
put that
people are
is,
doing."
did he see them after crossing paths from coming the opposite way, and after they passed him, he just kind of turned around and started following them instead of continuing on his way back to wherever he came?
I mean, I think that that's probably the most likely scenario, because if so, first, and I haven't really got to this yet, but it seems to me like
Okay.
there's someone at the bottom of the hill that they're
Yeah.
expecting to see there, because they mentioned that early, and it seems like the way that she talks, it seems like there's something that she recognizes at the bottom of the hill. So usually that would be a person. And if whoever that is, Bridge Guy, if his intention was to cut them off to try and prevent them from running away, he would probably do that, come from the south side, walk past them, and turn around.
Yeah.
And
So
especially if they're expecting to see a young guy, he would probably just walk right past them and then turn around to cut off what would be their escape, which would be going back over the bridge.
So,
Yeah.
Sergio, let me ask you this before we go any further. Does it hurt or not, or is it ineffective or helpful when you know more about a case when you're analyzing the suspects in a case?
So I like to go into at least the first one blind, because that prevents me, especially when I'm looking at someone like Richard Allen. That was I needed to go into that completely blind. Now, of course, it's not possible to go into every single interview. I can't do 20 interviews on this case and go into every single one blind. I'm going to learn more and more as I go.
Right.
But I will say, and I have a really hard time getting people to understand where I'm coming from, but to me, it doesn't matter who's innocent or guilty. I'm not here to try and prove a certain theory. I went into this thinking there's a 50-50 chance Richard Allen did this, and I'm going to go through his statement and prove that he either did or didn't. And that's because a statement is going to either scream deception or scream truth. It can't be 50-50. So after I did his statement, I was 100% certain that Richard Allen didn't do this. So at this point, yeah, the more information, I mean, I'm not trying to avoid learning facts of the case is what I'm getting at here. I expect that I'm going to learn more about the case as we go, and I'm not, you know, I'm not
Well,
going
maybe we'll have like a rule, like if we're telling you things that for you personally, like in your lane, I guess is the way to put it. If we are telling you things that ultimately don't matter, just tell us. That's probably the best way to do it. Because sometimes
Yeah.
we don't know. We're like, wait, would
You
this
can
help
talk
them to
about
know
it.
or not?
Don't censor yourselves. I can, at this
Yeah.
point, any theories that you have at this point, I will simply tell you whether I think that they're possible or believable based on the verbiage. And like whether he came across the south side of the bridge and turned around, there's nothing in the verbiage about that. So I'll just speculate when you
Yeah.
say that, but I can't confirm or deny that based on what I've seen in the verbiage.
Well, the reasoning
Well,
for that
except
question is really just because was it the first encounter or not kind of ordeal, right? Or is that's how
Oh
I
yeah,
took
and
it.
actually that's good. That's an important point, is that simply walking past somebody and saying hi, that is not going to count as getting to know somebody. Like if
Right.
that was their first encounter, then no, they would still be tentative. He would still be a stranger to them. I think that if they're going to be comfortable enough to not give any resistance at all to doing what he tells them, and I mean, I'm not saying like they don't run. I'm saying like they even verbally didn't give any resistance. Even their
Yeah.
tone didn't show any resistance. So to me, that's an indicator that they were expecting what happened there.
Let me, so I mean, there's nothing in the actual words, but I mean, I actually think Bridge Guy came from the South Side on the one hand. On the other hand, my thought about the language on the bridge is that if he passed them on the bridge is quite narrow. It's almost impossible to think that they would have passed each other on the bridge without saying anything, but it sounds like a first encounter when he comes back.
Yeah,
And
it's like passing each other versus like walking up on each other. Like one is just like you don't really have to say hi, you might nod, but the other one is like, oh, I just saw you, hi. That's how it seems to me.
Well, I'm just saying that I don't think anything would not have been said if
Yeah,
he'd come from the South Side and passed them, and if they had already spoken to one another, then to me, the exchange that happens
You're
doesn't
funny.
make any sense.
yeah, it's not unreasonable too to think that they may have met about halfway down the bridge and talked for a couple minutes. And yeah, I'm the one that you were talking to. Anthony Schatz, he's actually, down at the bottom of that hill. He was whatever, doing something. He's coming up from that way. If you head down that way, you'll probably see him down there. He's coming from whatever place. They could have had a conversation, and then Abby simply, the two of them simply turned and started walking that direction. And we only get the glimpse of what we get from that video. But
And the pushback on that, what you're running into here, Sergio, is the thing I've been saying for a while, and that is that for any description of what you what the conundrum of this case is that for any description of what happened to this in this case, there's some fact that kind of runs up against it and says, well, probably not that either.
That's what's so frustrating about it.
And for me, the problem is that nobody. So numbers of people saw somebody on the south side, on the north side. Sorry, on the trail, around the trail, but nobody described anybody like Bridge Guy. And so the idea that he was at the north end of the bridge and then following them down, yes, he could have come out of the woods. There are all kinds of possibilities. But there's nobody in that Snapchat picture behind Abby. I mean, it is totally empty.
Yeah. So I haven't seen the Snapchat picture, but is it possible that the person was like, when the video starts, if I was to take a still where that video starts, you would say there's nobody behind her.
Yeah,
No,
I
no,
have
this
it.
is
Hold on, I'll pull it up.
We talked about this. I think it was the other night.
This is definitely nobody behind her.
But the other thing that I wanted to say is I do, insert my theories, I guess, or talk about, stuff and banter back and forth. The one thing that I am certain of from that video is that, and of course, everyone's free to disagree with me. I'm only saying that I'm certain of that within myself. I'm not
Right.
saying, hey, you have to be certain with it. But the only thing that I'm certain of from that video is that they were not surprised to have that interaction there. They didn't feel threatened or surprised at that point. Nervous, maybe, but it's called an OODA loop. There was no loop there where they had to orient themselves to something that was unexpected. And so that's the only, who came from where, I don't know, but they definitely, even if it was her dad, there would have been some indicator like, oh, hey, Dad, what are you doing here? And then he says, hey,
Yeah.
go down the hill or something.
What?
None of that happened.
Is it your take on the language that Libby uses? I'm not sure how to ask this in a neutral way, not to prime the pump, but I'll just prime the pump. When she says there's no path here, is it your take that they were told to look for a path?
Maybe, yeah. That's possible. I'm not saying that it's 100%, but yeah, that's exactly the type of thinking that I want people to delve into. Like, somebody's not going to say something that they're not thinking. And so that question, what you asked, is basically, why was she thinking that?
Would it change your mind or affect your opinion to know that there is a path there straight off the end of the bridge?
And she says there's no path.
She says there's no path here.
Well, she said, I think I personally feel like she's saying when she's walking off the bridge, I feel like her camera kind of angles right, and she says there's no path here. So
You can go to the right
down,
or the left or straight, but there's
we
not
have to go
really a
down
path
here.
for either of them. At least not the one they're going down. But
Sergio, here's the picture of Abby on the bridge at 2:07.
Are there two people way at the end of the bridge though?
there's a barrier back there, and that is what there's a great debate about whether that's the big. It has 3 poles,
No,
and
they
it's
don't.
kind of like to block it, or is it a person? Like, it's hard for people to come to an agreement on which one it is. It could be people, it could be the barrier.
I'm with Amy on this, that it cannot be the barrier. The barrier is not straight. The barrier is not straight on. It's not that close to the end of the bridge. My only problem is that one of those vertical lines has no shadow. But
yeah, the one on the left.
The one on the right.
Well, I'll show you.
My screen is probably reversed. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get you there. But the more important thing about this image is that we are not halfway across the bridge yet.
This is the halfway mark where Libby is.
We're not quite halfway across the bridge, and this is supposedly posted to Snapchat that day on February 13th at 2:07. However, the Cellubrite download of the phone, this photo is not in Snapchat. It's not in the cache.
It's nowhere.
And it's not in the camera roll.
No, but the Snapchat app was accessed at 2:07.
Okay. So bottom line is I think where the controversy comes from is the fact that before trial, before all of the expert testimony came out, is that once this photo hit the airwaves, there were a lot of people who were questioning this photo for years, because there were a lot of people who had a background in Photoshop, and they were all claiming this photo is not real. And then when we get to trial, this is the photo that's in question. Where did it come from? We don't
Yeah, the
know.
expert said he couldn't find it. He had to find it on the internet because it
Oh.
Yeah, he
wasn't in
couldn't
any of her
he couldn't
devices.
find it.
It was nowhere.
So
Not in Snapchat, not on the phone, nowhere.
So has anybody recreated this photo to see if taking the picture from this angle from right here, if you end up with, if that's a barrier, it's still going to be there, right?
There's a few people who took videos and stuff, and we usually use that for comparison when we're trying to figure out if there's any merit to it or not, or what to think, or where to go, or
So let's get into, it's already, let me see, it's already 8:30. Let's go ahead and get into the murder board. And do you see on the front page here, Sergio, this is the bottom photo. The bottom photo on this presentation is on my, I can't even tell you what app my HP laptop has, but I worked and worked and worked and worked on this photo. And what you're seeing back here behind, well, that's a lie. Let me back it up. So this is at 2:07. What we see in the background here is what we think. Maybe two people, maybe. This photo on this front page of this presentation, I took from the actual BG video and zoomed in and zoomed in and zoomed in. So this, anybody, and I'm challenging anybody in chat right now, go to the BG video, pull it up, and between 10 seconds and 13 seconds, scan the video and screenshot every second that you can, and you are going to find this image down here at the bottom. This to me appears to be several people in the background on the bridge. I have this photo. It's more clear, but it's not as close up. But that's a whole nother rabbit hole. Let's get into Richard Allen. Richard Allen's connections. He has none. He has no relationships with any of the other people of interest. He has no digital interests, and he has no connections to the girls. None, none, none.
according to the lead investigators, by the way, people get mad at me for saying that, but they literally testified there's zero physical or digital evidence connecting this man to the crime or the victims in any way.
Anyway,
According
then we
to
get
them.
to Ron. Right. Then we get to Ron Logan. We got Ron Logan here. He's the property owner. He lied about his alibi. His phone pings by the bridge at 2:09. Now remember, Libby took a picture of Abby at 2:07. And what's also not on here is the fact that after the trial, we had the motion to correct error that came out with the Brad Weber van video. And Michael Osbrook says that on that video at Michael, what is the time? 2:08, 2:09. We have a vehicle driving in that private drive, going off camera, and then turning around within a minute and coming back out. As if possibly
208.
2:08. As if somebody was possibly dropped off right there under, because that private drive goes in under the bridge.
but nobody could get to the. I don't. Nobody's getting to that bridge in 5 minutes.
Yeah, but then we have another car spotted pulling out of the cemetery at 2:20. I don't know. We don't have video of that one, but I would very much like to know if those two have anything to do with each other. Like, did he drive around and go to the other side of the creek after realizing he didn't have enough time? Or, like, what are we supposed to do with these vehicles leaving this area at those times? It's very frustrating. Like, who would have accidentally gone up Weber's driveway and then turned around?
Right.
I don't. Since we're on Ron Logan here, I'd like to know from Sergio, what if anything, how it would affect what opinion he'd have with respect to. And I think you already said, Sergio, you know, he didn't control these girls alone. It's pretty well established that afternoon after the girls disappeared, and when I say disappeared, the last we know of them is the video at 2:14, right? Ron Logan goes to a fish store in Lafayette, 30 minutes away, and there's some activity on the phone at 5:45. He doesn't check out until 5:21. So he couldn't have been responsible for the activity on the phone. It's kind of like he left somebody in control of the girls.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds definitely plausible. I mean, another thing too is anytime somebody's committing a murder, they're going to constantly be messing with their phone, trying to leave it in the wrong place. I saw that a lot in the Madeline Soto case. So where a phone pings can end up being pretty deceptive if this is pre-planned.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you about, and this is going back to Keegan Klein, and I'm hijacking the murder board for a minute, but when you mentioned, when you were doing Keegan Klein's, and correct me if I'm remembering this wrong, but when you were talking about Keegan Klein's confession or his statement, you talked, I think, about his father leaking into it, and so and I think kind of you kind of came to the conclusion that Keegan Klein's father was involved too. Have I misstated what you were thinking?
It's not fresh on my memory. During that video, what bothered me the most in that video about the way that his statement transpired regarding his father is that he seemed to really be trying to cover for him. There was a definite hesitation of Keegan Klein to mention his father or to bring his father into anything. He seemed like when the questioning was about, you know, there's two people logging into two separate accounts in the same house, that had to be your father. And he said, no, that was me on two different devices. So, you know, because the verbiage was exclusionary, it doesn't definitively mean that his father had a role in this, but it means that Keegan Klein has a motivation of keeping his father out of the narrative for a particular reason. So I don't know what that reason was. It wouldn't surprise me if it was because his father was involved in this. And when you think that they're both in the same business, I mean, you know.
So what I remember you saying, and again, this may be incorrect. What I remember you saying is that the mention of his father leaking in from his memory of what happened. And the question I wanted to ask was, could it be leaking in from a prior interrogation? He's not really remembering his father being involved, but he's remembering his prior interrogation where he mentioned his father.
There seems to be a lot of that in the transcripts that we have, where there's other conversations that we didn't get a transcript for. Is that what you're referring to? Because I have that same question.
Well, I mean, there were I don't know what was in the prior interrogations. I'm just saying that so this is a second or third interrogation. Keegan Klein, and yes, it's entirely plausible that it's leaking in from his mention of his father is leaking in from his memory of the events. But it's also, I was just wondering what Sergio, I guess I'm wondering about the phenomenon of stuff leaking in from prior interrogations as opposed to straight from memory of a situation.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I have to look at it again. If I tried to speak to that right now, I'd be guessing, and I have to put myself back into that analysis. I have to actually look at the analysis again and remember what I was analyzing in that moment. So I will do that, especially now that we're a little bit farther down the road with this. The next time that I come on here for whoever I end up analyzing next, I will do some research on that so that I'm prepared to tell you exactly what that leakage meant at that time.
Hey folks, you all who know more than I do, which is all of you, do we have any of the recordings that were introduced at trial of Rick's prison confessions?
What do you mean, the phone calls or the other ones?
Yeah, phone calls, whatever.
We have the audio from those.
Well, I think it'd be really interesting to get those to Sergio if he'd be willing to look at them or listen to them.
Yeah, I have the transcript and the audio for all of them. We can send them.
Yeah, I did use part of those in my video.
Is that I know, I can't remember because I started a playlist to go through them. I remember the interrogation, both the interrogation videos, I think. I remember the one with Holman. That was excellent. I liked that one. But the prison calls, I don't remember if those, have you gotten to those yet? I can't remember. I'm trying to look at my playlist now.
That was on the Richard Allen video. That was at the very end of that video. And
yeah,
what I noted in that specifically was the first time that he confesses, she asked him, "Do you really want to say this now?"
Yeah.
And he says something, and I can't remember exactly what he says, but he says something like, "I think I have to," which that shows an element of coercion there, because something happened off screen where when you're a prisoner, and unfortunately, having been in the military during the Iraq War, I got to learn a lot about coercion, and that was one of the reasons why I was there, was because of the coercive tactics that were being used before I got there. So you'll see statements like that where he says, "I think I have to." That means that he was told what to say on camera, or back in Iraq, it used to be the soldiers that were put on camera. That's what I was drawing memory from.
Yeah.
Here, he's not on camera; he's on recording, right, on the phone. So he's making a statement under a coercive element there. And then later on, but he actually doesn't. In that first one, he doesn't actually say that he killed them. He says, "I did it." And then the next time he comes on there, it's something along the lines of, like, "The last time that I did this, it wasn't good enough, and I have to be more direct now," is what the lead up is indicating. And so those once coercive tactics have been used, the verbiage itself no longer is relevant, because that person is trying to protect their own life at that point. So on that video, I didn't want to go into a lengthy explanation of interrogation tactics and what it means to break a person to the point where using coercion to the point where they're willing to confess to something that they didn't do. But that's a whole nother topic. That's why
Right.
it's very short at the end there. And I tried to just touch on it enough to say that especially that first one was clearly coerced.
Right. Well, there's one, I just pulled it up because this one this one always gets me. It was on April 3rd. He's talking to Kathy, and he just randomly, after he's, he just goes right into it. He says hi, she says hi, what's going on? He says, I want to apologize to you because I did it. I killed Abby and Libby. And she's like, no, you didn't. There's something wrong. And he says, no, I mean, I evidently did it. And she says, no, you didn't. Why would you say that? And he says, because maybe I did. She said, no, you didn't, dear. And he says, I think I did. And he seems confused.
Yeah.
And that one, I cannot get past that one because it's almost, now that we know that the mindset he was in at this time, especially, he had been since mid-March. It takes them about a month before they will officially say someone is in psychosis, because it takes an extensive period of time to actually diagnose if it's an episode, if it's a full-on issue, how severe, that kind of thing. And so this is weeks into it. And he says, maybe I did. I evidently did. And this was right after they dropped off Discovery. And so he's looking at all these documents, and they're, the last time we hear from Holman, or the last time he heard from Holman was like, all these experts are telling us that's you. And I feel like that was the moment where he really does start believing it, almost like he says it like they finally convinced him of it.
Yeah. And the part that you read there, those all have indicators of deception. And so you can, if looking at my videos, you'll see me talk about that a lot. I think I did is it's called a reduction of commitment. Maybe I did is a reduction of commitment. Those are all indicators of deception. It means that he doesn't believe yet what he's telling you. So the other thing is that I've done some research on this, and drug-induced psychosis is a real thing. And once you are in psychosis, your whole reality becomes not real.
Yeah, he also, at this time, around these times, the log sheets, he's saying he killed Kevin and Chris and Roger, who don't exist. He killed his grandchildren. They don't exist either. He started World War III. He cheated on a cigarette. Like, all these just, within these phone calls, there's also, usually at the morning hours, you can tell he's not sleeping by the times that are listed on all these log sheets. He's not getting a lot of sleep at all. And he's almost like, it just, the best way I know how to describe all of this is like someone who is early onset dementia or Alzheimer's. They're lucid and then they're not. And some things can trigger it. Some things it's just, it doesn't need a trigger. But I have such a hard time evaluating any of this because that's the only way I know how to relate it, is lucid or not lucid. Whether it's drug induced or not, I don't, it's that I don't have enough. That's not my lane, I guess, is the best way to put it. But if they are,
that is, like, he is a classic textbook case of somebody who was tortured.
Yeah, it seems like it. It really seems like it.
So,
like agony.
No, it does. And I wish, I wish that, okay, so
actually, real quick, I'm going to send these to you for him, but I found the part about Kathy is the one who, when he says, I knew I was supposed to let you go. I was trying to let you go. I hope you're always, this is the one where he initially starts saying, I have to tell you over the phone. It has to be over the phone. And at one point she says, who's with you? Who's with you? Who's with you? Who's with you? You need to stop talking. If your lawyer's not there, you need to stop talking. Who's with you, honey? Who's with you? Like, she says it over and over and over, because you can kind of hear someone off in the background. But that one, she sounds like she knows probably more from talking to him maybe the last time. I don't know, but it's just the level of panic in those calls, and I don't know if that plays into what he's saying or not. But yeah, sorry, I'll send those to you, Amy, to give to him. But
okay,
man, like what is going on if somebody is with him right there. It seems like it.
Well,
Yeah,
I
I don't
think,
want. Sorry.
go ahead. No, I was just really quick. I was gonna say one of these phone calls, he does mention someone is right there.
Yeah, and that's she seems to believe him, and she seems to hear something because she goes into because she can tell something's wrong when you read through these. I don't want to read through all of it. I'm trying to just pick out the clips to point out why maybe we should look at it more. Even just from that statement alone, I feel like it's worth it. But yeah, he says I have to. She says, "Are you sure you want to do this over the phone?" Hang on, I just accidentally auto scrolled out of it.
Yeah, and he says I
Yeah,
have
and
to.
Yeah,
he said I have to. Yeah.
That, I mean, I don't want to ruin people's night here, but
that's all right.
that's, if you're, it's easy to recreate that. And he was tortured to the point, and they have, if this is organized on the inside of where he's being held, they can tell him, we'll kill your family, we'll do, because when someone is not guilty, then he knows that the murderers are out there, and he knows that they're supported by the people in there, which means he has no recourse. He is chained. He's stuck in there with no ability to protect his family. And if they're threatening his family, saying, you're going to go on here and you're going to say this on the phone, on the recorded line, or we're going to kill your family, he's going to say whatever it takes to feel like he can protect his family.
He also asks if he can trust his own lawyers in that same conversation. He's like, honey, can we trust them? It's almost like somebody's saying, you can't even trust your lawyers. You think they're going to help you? Because why else would he be asking her, can you trust them? And she says, yes, they're your lawyers, honey. Like, yes, you can trust them. He's like, well, I need to tell you something. And she says, well, maybe tell them, like, should you be doing it on the line? And he says, well, I got to tell you something anyway. I think I have to.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, I need you to know. The next thing after he says that, well, I need to tell you something anyway. I think I have to. And then he says, I need you to know that I did this. And it was right after he's like, can we trust the lawyers? Can we not? And I have to do it on the phone, even though she's like, no, wait to talk to them. He's like, I can't. And he says it anyway. It's so strange.
Is that?
It's not strange. It's coerced.
Yeah. And does that, and hearing all of that, and then you compare that to the man that you watched in the interrogation video, who was sitting there sternly, completely two different ends of the spectrum of personalities.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he's broke down.
Yeah.
It took him 6 months before it happened, though, too. Like, it's not like this was just overnight and he just was a little uncomfortable and just trying to, the corrections officers were saying, well, he's just trying to get stuff. He's feigning. He's doing all this stuff. Like, they were making all kinds of excuses about why nothing he says should be taken seriously on one hand, but out of the other side of their mouth, they're also saying that he's confessing and it's very legitimate and it's chronological and it's specific and
yeah, and they're using that to their advantage. And how deep. So in my mind, I'm looking at this a little differently, probably than most of you guys are, but I want to know how deep this runs. That's, at this point, I do, empathize with Richard Allen here. It's hard. I can't not. I try not to. I can't not, because I see from both sides of it. His statement, there was nothing deceptive about anything that he said in his statement. And then the only time I've ever seen deception indicators from Richard Allen is when he says that he did it. And
he's almost, it sounds to me like he's trying to make it believable. So, because he does, when his lawyers are visiting him, he's asking about his wife. Is my family okay? Is my wife safe? Is everything going on? He's very consumed with that when he sees his lawyers. Where's my wife? How is she? These guys are saying stuff. And then, then he's also so honest. He almost tells you like, well, I have to.
Yeah. I have to.
This is also why getting a civil suit filed is so important, because the discovery in that can tease out an awful lot more of what happened.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Sergio, I wanted to ask you, your kind of analysis, I'm guessing, but I don't know, is probably used the way profiling is more as an investigative tool. I'm guessing you probably don't get to testify in court too often about your opinions about interrogations.
Correct. Yeah, that was, I was sent to Iraq. Well, when I was sent to Iraq, my job there was to find missing U.S. persons. So whether they were soldiers or civilians, whether they were dead or still alive, that was my job. So I had free access to the detention facility, and I used my skills to talk to detainees, pretend like I was interrogating them, and flip them. So turn them into sources and then release them, and then have them try and uncover information outside and then bring that information back to me. I was a source handler. So
how many people did you find?
What's that?
How many people did you find?
There was the Matt Maupin case was the big case that I was working on. So that case was open for 3 years when I got to Iraq. And what I did when I got there was I fired all of the sources, basically terminated all the sources that had been created before me and restarted everything from scratch. And I trained my interrogators on what to look for and created a whole new source network. And I was able to find him about, it was about 4 months, 5 months after I got into country. And then after that, I was working on finding there was a team, a terrorist cell that killed 4 Marine snipers and their spotters. And that was back in 2004 as well. And because when I was there in 2007, 2008. And so I tracked down that cell. So those were my 2 big accomplishments that I did. And yeah, you're right. When I was working, I was finding indicators and sensitivity in people's, when I was pretending to interrogate them, and I would push to get information where I needed to. It was not, had nothing to do with like the US judicial system. It wasn't like I got to be able to use this in court kind of a thing. It was, I see a weakness here, I'm going to push it until I get the information I need.
How does interrogations with people, I would think, assuming some of these people at least spoke English, wasn't their first language, how does that affect the analysis?
I had my own interpreter. So it was, I had to do everything through my interpreter. I had a professional interpreter who was really good. He would translate everything directly using the same tone, the same body language. It was weird. It took a while to get used to that, because if they were yelling at me, my interpreter would yell at me if they were being nice. But it was weird to begin with, but I was able to do everything in English, and he knew to translate everything exactly, not to paraphrase, but he translated stuff exactly. He was a professional interpreter.
So are you doing this kind of work with law enforcement or somebody now, or do you just do this?
Nope. Now I'm retired, and I just started the YouTube channel for fun, basically, because I just wanted something to do, and I like using this skill to look at cases. And as I was expecting when I started this to just find a bunch of guilty people and show you this is how they're guilty, this is why they're guilty. And in doing this over the last year, I've found 3 cases now where the wrong person has either been convicted or is on trial. And so now this is just sort of, I'm just going where this stuff leads me.
Trying to find a place to use your skill set where it would be useful, kind of thing.
Yeah. I spent my entire career in public service to try and help people. And I feel like now that I'm retired, I have more of an ability to do good than I did when I was actually working.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have a question about the mop-in thing. Is that did you said you were looking for other people who, like, the other contractors who were also killed? Were they all kind of the same case, or one led into the other?
Well,
If I'm
there
thinking
was
of Mopin, he was one of the soldiers. They did eventually declare him dead, I think. Is that,
yeah,
am
I
I
ended
thinking
up
of the right guy?
remains, yeah. But and that's a whole nother story. There was
Yeah.
6 open cases when I got there.
That's
But the
crazy.
Matt Moppin case was the biggest one. And
Yeah.
so there was an entire task force with every aspect of the US government had representation there. So that was my primary case for the first part of my deployment. Then after that, the other cases weren't, they were cold cases. I didn't have any way of following up on those cases. So one of my sources just happened to have information on what happened to the Marine snipers.
Yeah.
So because I was running my own shop at that time, I just went where I could do the most good.
Yeah.
You probably haven't seen the actual language of the confessions, and somehow, in some cases, we don't have them. But there are at least 4, and I think as many as 6 other people who have confessed in this case. Do you know about that?
I
would love to see their confessions.
Well,
Oh
we have secondhand accounts, at least with Elvis. They're according to his sister. His sisters reported what they remembered him saying, and one of them passed a polygraph exam about it. The other refused to be interviewed a couple of times, and then finally agreed to sit down with Ferenczi and told him what he told her. They're just snippets, at least with Elvis, and then we know about Ron and Keegan. I don't know, who else are you talking about?
I have, so on the board so far, if we go through the board,
well, Brad did make incriminating statements, not so much a confession, but he was pointing the finger at the other ones. I guess
well, we do have Elvis's statement to click. So this guy.
Well, go ahead. No, go ahead.
This guy says to law enforcement officer, sort of as they're parting, as I understand it, kind of turns around and says, by the way, if you find my spit on the girls, but I can explain it, I won't be in trouble, right?
That was to Murphy. They had just taken a buccal swab of him, and on the way home, after they were trying to drop him off, he was walking up to his trailer, and he turned around after, he walked up to his door and turned back around and came up to the patrol car and said, if my spit is found on one of the girls, but I can explain it, will I still be in trouble?
So, Sergio, look at the screen.
Yeah.
And when we talk about the Odinism aspect of it, so this picture up here in the right-hand corner is a picture of, these are 2 girls who are not dead, but it's a mock picture that was posted over here on Brad Holder's Facebook page a couple of years before the murder. Brad Holder and Patrick Westfall down here are both practicing Odinists. Brad in the hat is his son was dating Abby at the time. And there are rumors that I've been told that these ceremonies were taking place at the cemetery next to Ron Logan's. I've been told that Brad Holder at one point in time was living at Ron Logan's property. We know that Brad Holder and Patrick Westfall were buddies. I did send you a couple of interviews that Patrick Westfall did. Mm-hmm. Patrick Westfall lived in Delphi. He was within walking distance of the bridge if you went through his backyard. he met Abby, and this case is like the tentacle. When they say tentacles, it's tentacles. So,
Yeah.
I don't know where you want to go next. What do you think?
Well, I just wanted to say, if there's any possibility that Ron Logan had seen that Facebook post before the murders, then that is what he was recreating right there.
Kind of, sort of, but there's more to it than that. And see, that's the great thing about the fact that you don't know the details about this case. There's a lot more to it than that, because the crime scene photos don't look like that. They do, but they don't. The sticks are on Abby and Libby in a specific way. And then you've got posts after the crime where Brad Holder is posting replicas of the sticks where he's hand drawn them on his hand or on his forearm. That
It's on his hand.
It's what?
Yeah, it's on his hand, and it was a month after the crime.
Yeah,
it was in April.
And then he posts a picture that he hand painted on the 1-year anniversary.
Yeah.
I like you can't, I mean,
he is the most, if he's not involved, he posts the most unfortunate stuff that is just, the only way I know how to describe his social media presence since this happened is taunting. He is taunting people.
It's like bold face, middle finger.
And it could be because he got falsely accused, and so he's just playing into it, kind of like, yeah, I'm a, yeah, whatever. What are you gonna do about it? Because he's just, it's so not real to him that he's like, go ahead, run with it. I don't even care. It's so ridiculous. Or he is straight up taunting. Like, it's got to be one or the other. There's no in between, because it's so pervasive. Like, he keeps doing it. He still kind of does it. He even posted a picture of himself in that T-shirt that said, "I've done it."
Like, yeah, I mean, he's crazy.
What? Yeah.
So is it possible that, if Ron Logan did that and he's doing that, he's recreating that scene from memory, right? It's like he's probably not looking at a picture and recreating it, so it wouldn't be exact. I mean, there would probably be a lot of stuff wrong with it if you're just trying to recreate a picture you saw a year ago or something.
Well, you also have to use what's available. He's in the middle of the woods, like you use what you got.
Now, the other thing is, and you have them, and I'm not sure what their connection is, but you have them on the same slide here. So if Ron Logan was part of this group and that group knew that they weren't there and they had an alibi, and they start going and trying to make themselves look like, like they're tied to this, but they all have alibis because they weren't a part of it, that would all be to protect Ron Logan. And if he's in this group, why wouldn't they be protecting them? Well, why wouldn't they be protecting him?
All of their alibis fell apart, but Jerry Holman insists they were double and triple checked. And to this day, they are completely not like Elvis.
They're double and triple checked up to the point of, we recorded their interviews and then we accidentally recorded over them.
Yeah. Well, they gave one story, and then when they followed up on phone records, they weren't where they said they were. And then even with Brad Holder, he said that he was at work. He couldn't have done this. We'll come to find out he checked in at Workout Anytime at 1:41, and he didn't clock out, according to them, until an hour later. And there's just, I guess, Westfall's alibi is the same as Richard Allen's, is just he was home. They didn't actually check on it or follow up or ask his neighbors if he was there. They just said, okay.
Yeah, I will say nothing emboldens somebody more than, number one, if someone is attacking somebody in your group, your family, or in this case, your Odin group or whatever, their neo-Nazi group, and then the other thing that really emboldens people is knowing that you didn't do it.
Yeah.
If you're gonna try and protect one of your own and you didn't do it, you're not going to be afraid to go on Facebook and post pictures and post drawings and say, "Hey, look at me, come chase me."
Yeah, but he told his wife a different story. You know, he's telling her, he's posting all that publicly on Facebook, and then in private, he's telling her, I think Patrick Westfall did it. I also think he killed a couple of girls who died in a fire. Like, he's telling her, don't talk to him. Watch out for him. He's dangerous. If he finds out you're married to me, you're going to be in danger. He's telling her all this stuff that he's telling, and Patrick and Brad Holder, when the police came knocking at their door, because tips came in on Brad Holder the first day they announced the tip line, people tipped him in and said he's dating, his son is dating one of the victims, and he has a bunch of creepy stuff on Facebook, including Gothic symbols and people with tree branches on them.
Well, and
Nobody
that
knew anything yet. They
yeah,
pretended like they were still friends when the police came knocking on their door in the very beginning, but way after the fact, after the Franks came out, all of a sudden they're like, actually, no, we had a falling out before this. We weren't even friends at this time, but they sure were playing like they were still friends in contact when speaking to the officers who interviewed him.
Yeah, put up a unified front.
Something like there's just, and that's part of the problem with this group is it's really difficult to dismiss them because there are connections. Like one of the dude's sons was dating one of the girls, and all of the weird confessions are pointing the finger, and then we've got Elvis saying the morning before anybody knew they were dead yet, when they were still missing, this dude came home. His sister said he was hyper, borderline incoherent, just rambling. He tried to give her a blue bloody coat and said he's in a gang now. And what else did he say? He said he was on the bridge with 2 girls who were murdered, and one of them was such a troublemaker that he had to give her horns. And he's talking about, he called her Abigail. And then 6 months later, Brad Holder gets called back in for another interview that they didn't record. And not long after that, Elvis confessed to his other sisters, and he said, I'm going away for a long time. I was on that trail and that bridge with those girls when they were murdered. There were 2 other people there when it happened, and I spit on one of the girls. And that was before he made that spit comment to Murphy. So there's just all these things where it's like, okay, we're just supposed to not think about that or look into that.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, that's why I focus so heavily on people's statements and not on evidence, because evidence can be created, it can be destroyed, it can be manipulated. And when I get a person's statement, I am just looking at their memory. So I will continue to look at these statements one by one and, to give you my analysis. I know some people don't believe what I do, but
so tell me this, Sergio. What would you have to say about having looked at Keegan Klein's interrogation, one of them, and now you've seen the mock crime scene photo, the precursor, and an actual confession to somebody in prison. Keegan Klein, and let's just suppose he did say this, he said he arranged the sticks in a pentagram to make people think kids had done it. And the sticks were not arranged. I mean, absolutely not arranged in a pentagram. And I'm wondering what you think about why he'd be saying that if he was involved.
I mean, I would have to look at the statement because there's too much just getting, this secondhand. It's not an actual statement that I can analyze. So if that statement is available to analyze, I'll definitely analyze it. Just off the top of my head, it sounds like, based on what I know right here, my impression here is that Ron Logan is the one who staged the bodies, and Ron Logan would definitely be in regular communication with Keegan Klein. So Keegan Klein may not have known. He may have known that he arranged the sticks, but he probably didn't know exactly how he arranged them. So I still don't think that Keegan Klein was the one who dumped the bodies there.
Well, part of one of his confessions is actually he wheelbarrowed Libby down the hill.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely possible, but just, I mean, based on just looking at him, I would say he probably didn't have, when he says we, that's, now again, this is why I have to look at the statement, but something like that, you know, if you're at work and your department is working on building a computer program and you're overseeing it, like say you're the manager and the programmers are all doing the programming, and then you get up on stage and say, we created this, you may not actually have firsthand knowledge, even though you're saying we created it. So I would have to look at the statement to see how the verbiage ties in with the rest of this, but nothing of what you've said sounds exclusionary at this point. So it sounds very much like, based on his body type and the difficulty that I think he would have, I think it's quite possible that he helped wheelbarrow them from the car to the hill and then probably didn't go down there in the dark because the terrain would probably be, you know, too treacherous for him. Ron Logan, I'm guessing, probably is used to that.
Yeah, there's video of him with Alexis McAdams. She was one of the first people to interview him after they released the crime scene the first time. And there's video of him, and he's just walking up and down like he's been, I don't know, like a young man. He does not seem to even hesitate. He just goes, and then he turns around. He tries to help him up. I think Barbara McDonald also went out there probably years later, and he did the same thing. He was helping other people up and down. And I think about that a lot because I wonder who, like, was he helping the girls up and down? I don't know. Like, I don't know what to make of him. He's an
You're talking about Ron Logan.
Physically, he could get up and down, and he seems to have known that place inside and out. But he was also, he's also drunk. They say he was always drunk, and I don't know what always is for them. If that means always, or if that just means too much, too often. I don't know. But he was physically, he was more capable than anybody else who's gone out there, it seems.
Yeah, you're talking about Ron Logan, right?
Yeah, Keegan, though, I don't know. He was not as big as he is now back then. Like, if you look at pictures of him back then, he was not, I don't know if that means he was in shape, but he wasn't as big as he is now.
Now, if you look at this picture right here of Keegan with his dad, the middle picture, he wasn't big like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I know, Sergio, I don't want to keep you all night. I know.
Especially, yeah, y'all have to cut us off because we've been spinning for so long trying to just make sense of stuff. We can go on forever. So there's got to be a timer when we get together to do this stuff.
No, I mean, this is great, and I think we covered Ron Logan pretty well tonight. And I guess what I need to know is who's the next person that you want me to analyze.
So let's go ahead, Michael.
I think it would be terrific to put together all the longer clips of Kelsey.
Oh, look, Sergio, he's like, who's Kelsey? That's great.
Sounds like a new name.
Kelsey is Libby's sister who said more different things than you can possibly shake a stick at.
A lot of people, I think I texted you a little bit the other day. I said, hey, you might want to look at these because there's a lot of people who think the family were involved. And
hey, Amy, I think we've all been booted off, or maybe all I see is Sergio. Are we still here? Real quick.
Yeah, we're all still here. Yeah, I was.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, I had just switched back from another tab, and I thought, are we talking to ourselves? Sorry. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I just gave him the spotlight. So
nice.
In the chat. Okay, so let's be realistic, guys, because I have to let Sergio off of here. He's got things to do. Being realistic, who do you want to see him? If we're going down the line of Ron Logan, he did Richard Allen, he did KK, he did Ron Logan. Next in line, And you got to remember, we only can have him
Well,
analyze
that
people
was my
that we have.
question, though. What if we give him a sampling of this is what we have? Like, we have this much stuff for this person. We have this much for that person. Should we show him like a sampling and then he tells us which one he can actually work with the
Well,
most? Or should we pick a person?
I think that let's just, so based on everybody in chat knows what we have. We know that we have a lot of interviews of Patrick Westphal. We have interrogation videos and interviews of Garrett Kurtz. And we have a lot of information about Mike Patty, Doug Carter, Jerry Holman, and Kelsey. Who do you guys want to see? I'm keeping Greeno out of this. We're not going to complicate things.
I want to say
anymore.
Holman just because I'm like, more spotlight on that man. There's probably so much to do on
So
Holman.
everybody in the chat, drop the name who you would like to see Sergio go to next.
I got to think it's Westfall or Kelsey, one of the two.
Yeah, that's probably what most people are going to want.
I mean, Westfall's easier to do because they're longer, sustained clips.
He's also very gifted at the art of coded language, and he's something else. That's the nicest way I can put it about him. But the
Coded
Kelsey one
language
would be interesting.
bother me at all.
But
Do what?
Sergio, when Amy said there are a lot of people who think the family was involved, I think I don't think anybody thinks, well, no, there are people who actually think they were involved in the killing. I think that there are a lot of people who think, and I'm one of them, that the family knows a lot more than they're saying.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Holly. So it looks like the winner in chat.
Yeah, I think there's a winner.
Yeah, there's definitely a winner, which is Kelsey. So what I will do, Sergio, is I will email you, and to be honest, it won't be hard for you. Kelsey is Libby's sister. Mm-hmm. Kelsey is the one who dropped the girls off at the bridge. Kelsey's hair, a piece of her hair with the root, was found wrapped around Libby's finger at the crime scene.
After she was washed and redressed, it was still there somehow.
Yeah, Abby. Did I say that wrong? Did I say Libby?
Oh yeah, it was around Abby's finger. I thought
it was
you said
around
Abby's
finger. Sorry, it was around Abby's finger. So
it's messy, is what it is. It's just
it's very messy. I will email you the information, and then it's not going to be hard for you to Google Kelsey German and pull up multiple interviews of her. She's been at CrimeCon. She's done one-on-one interviews with Gray Hughes, and
she apparently talked to Anthony Schatz, and then it's weird. There's a lot of weirdness.
It's so weird.
The statements that are going to be the best for me are going to be ones where there's as close as you can find to direct accusations. So those are usually going to be police interrogations, even though the police are terrible at asking direct questions. And but like for the Ron Logan one, that was perfect. Like, those are great questions. Those are the types of questions I need. When somebody says, tell me what you know about this, it doesn't generate any stress in them. So where I have questions that force somebody back into reliving an event, those are the good questions. So I would say the most hostile interviews are the best.
I don't know that there's a single hostile interview that was done, but there's a lot of responses to hostile Facebook stuff where she makes some comments. But
it might be a better use of Sergio's time to do Westfall, at least one of the Westfall interviews.
I mean, if most people want to see Kelsey, let's do that. I mean, I'm not cutting you guys off at one more analysis. So
we're trying to prioritize, I guess.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, that this community, we've been at this, I've only been at this for a little over 2 years on YouTube. less than 6 months on Delphi, to be honest. But I followed Delphi since the beginning. So if at any point, I'm going to be honest, if at any point you feel like, okay, you guys are freaking driving me crazy, you need to let me know and I will shut it down.
Yeah, because there's an endless thing to look at in this case. Like there's always another person, another thing, it just never ends.
There is. And
I mean, honestly, I'm doing this now for Richard Allen. I know what he's going through.
Yes.
Probably better than most people.
Well, I appreciate you saying that because it's difficult to, I don't remember exactly the turning point where I was like, I tried to leave room for the fact that maybe he did do it and they just haven't proved it. But at a certain point, I ran out of space to give to think anything other than, I mean, I do believe he's innocent, and that's difficult to accept because he's in there.
Yeah. So we'll keep going at it. Let me put it this way. I know that they filed for the appeal, right?
Mm-hmm. They're still waiting on the transcript, though. So it hasn't really, there's not actual movement yet because Jody's not done with the transcript, but it has been filed.
So,
but there's a post-conviction investigation going. It's somewhat limited for reasons we don't need to go into, but and so actually when you're looking at these things, I'm sure Amy can give you my email or something. Any investigative ideas would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, and that's really where I think I can help. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen my Madeline Soto videos. I did 2. And from one interrogation that happened 3 days after she went and said that her daughter was missing, I show you in there that I knew from just that interrogation, and that was a good interrogator, and he didn't know that he had this information. But I got first the confession, second, the location of where the body was, which they didn't know yet at that time. Yeah. And when they put it there and who put it there, all that information was in that interrogation. So if there's good information to be had, I just want to get it out to this community so that you guys know where to push.
Yeah. Well, it'll be appreciated. That's for sure.
Well, actually, it would be better not to get it out into the community.
Disagree. I disagree. Well, but she's the professional. Respectfully.
Well, respectfully, stuff that involves witnesses really doesn't need to be out in the community. If it's forensic evidence, yes, but
yeah.
I'm all for forensic evidence that can't change or be affected by public attention getting out there, but stuff that involves witnesses and which witnesses and which people to go after, that really doesn't need to be in the public.
Okay, so Sergio, do you still have the original email with all the links of the videos I sent you?
Yes.
Okay, so Patrick Westfall is one of them. He is a part of the Odinism group. I will send you a whole bunch of links for Kelsey. And then if you don't get out of those what you feel you need, you can Google her. And there's 1,000 different videos of her out there. Okay. And just know that she was the one who dropped them off. And a lot of people question her motive. They believe that she knows what happened.
So there's speculation that she was also catfishing her sister before this happened.
It's weird. It's all weird.
It is.
And
it would be good to either clear it, I think with families, you either got to clear them or catch them. And law enforcement did not do this family any favors by not even looking or trying to, she said they collected her DNA like 7 times or something, but it wasn't tested until trial. There's just all these weird things. Like, it would be nice to at least have some resolution to it.
Yeah.
So
One thing you
Sergio, you have to solve the whole goddamn thing. How about that? You got to solve the
I
whole
just have a
damn thing.
tool.
Lord knows Coleman's not going to.
I'm going to leave the
No.
solving up to everybody else.
Huh?
One thing you might want to know, Sergio, and then again, you might not, but you're going to know it, and I'm going to poison the well. So Becky Patty, Livy's grandmother, in a clip that was a trailer for the Dr. Phil show, her appearance there. It's been scrubbed from the internet. I assume the producers might still have it, but I have at least 4 people who claim to have seen the original.
No, I saw it.
She said, the first thing I said to Mike was, "They have our girls."
Who's they?
And that was when they were still missing and nobody knew they were more than just missing. Is that correct? When she said,
Yeah. Yes.
because I've never seen it and I've never been able to find it. So I never understood the context of when that was taken. If that was the night where Mike had someone who worked at a local news station that came down and did that first segment where Anna gives a statement on camera and they run it, and it's while the girls are still missing. But I never knew if it was it part of that where they had done a couple interviews that they ran for the next morning as well.
It was a clip. It was a clip. I don't know when the actual clip was taken, but I do know
the same one
that
where he's talking about the phones pinging all over town. Is it? I guess
that was
same time
no.
frame.
Before their
No.
I don't know when they appeared on the Dr. Phil show. It would have been before that, because she's in an interview saying,
Okay.
the first thing I said to Mike was, "They have our girls."
Our girls. Who's they? Who's
Yeah.
they? So I'm gonna let Sergio go because his head is probably
Full.
spinning.
Yeah.
Send
So
Sergio my phone number, Amy.
I will.
Thank
I'll
you for
send him
doing
your
this, by the
number.
way.
Yeah,
Huh?
absolutely.
I was telling him thank you for doing this, by the way.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thanks for coming into the lion's pit because
Yeah.
No, I mean, I live for this, so I'm happy to help. So we're just going to keep one step at a time. That's what I'm
Yeah.
getting at. We're going to take
Yeah.
this one step at a time, one interview at a time. And hopefully, as we go through this, certain people will drop off, certain people will not, and hopefully we'll be able to make sense of this.
Yeah.
Yep. So everybody in chat, I posted Truth Revealed's channel link in the chat at the very top. And I posted All Eyes on Delphi's channel link in the top. Make sure you hit the like and the subscribe on the way out. And I will keep you guys updated on which direction Sergio decides to go, whether it's Patrick Westfall, Garrett Kurtz, or Kelsey German. It's a long way up to the top. We have a lot of comments in here.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you, Sergio, so much.
Absolutely.
I said I'm going to try to keep this at an hour, and here we are 2.5 hours later.
Yeah. So I got to set a
Lord,
timer
I'm
for
so
these.
sorry. So, all right. Have a good night, guys. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe. See you later.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.